How much should you charge for mulch? Well, I'll tell you immediately, but then I'll tell you a little more stuff. It's $150 per yard installed. Come check this out. This is what you call smart. We're on a commercial property right now. It's a restaurant. We back it right up into the garden bed. Boop, 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 boop. Dump it right in the garden bed directly. And then I'm gonna move it over and dump some more over there. So mulch covers, it depends on the shred of the mulch. It covers, if you look it up on Google, 160 square feet at 2 inches. But I think it's more like 140 square feet at 2 inches, because 2 inches is that, right? You want like 2.5 inch coverage. So, and how big is a yard of mulch actually? How do you tell? See this parking space? A parking space is, look, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 12, 160 square feet. A yard of mulch is supposed to cover at 2 inches. I don't remember the last time I see the yard of mulch cover this much. So that's why I'm saying it's 140 square feet. So take 2 feet off of this parking space and fill this up at 2 inches. That's a yard. So when you're eyeballing it in the garden beds or measuring it, you could use a mulch calculator tool on Mr. Googs. But here's when your math might go off a little bit. Come over here. And when I say $150 per yard installed, I used to charge $65 per yard installed. It was insane. I wasn't making any money. Then my buddy Danny was like, this was years ago, he's like, bro, we get $100 a yard all day. I was like, what? So I started just telling the customers $100 a yard, up to 10 yards is $1,000. Anything above that, it drops to $85 per yard, right? Then it was $125 per yard, then $145 per yard. Now it's $150 per yard installed. That means that the mulch appears in the customer's garden bed for $150 per yard. Includes materials, transportation, everything. So you see how plants, you want to minus and subtract for the space of the plants, because plants take up space. So this whole area right here, but look at all this ground cover, see? And the lilies and the pines, the rose shrub, the yew shrubs. So I'm thinking like this whole area, you could put about a yard of mulch, this whole area, all the way from that end of the garden bed, all the way to here, would be a yard at 2 inches. Then this whole area of this whole garden bed, we're looking at 1, 2, 3 yards. 3 yards will cover all of this garden space. And I'd say 2 to 2.5 inches. Now, as part of this job, we also mulch those little islands out there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 islands. Whenever we mulch this property, I order 6 yards of mulch dumped into the back of my dump trailer. And so we put 3 here and 3 yards amongst these 4 islands. And come on, look how thick this is. And what's the math? What's 6 times 150? 900 bucks? Yeah. Now here's the next question people ask. My guy is done. How thick is this? All the way to there. That's 2.5 inches. That's maybe 3. But we want a nice thick coating to keep the weeds down, especially on a commercial property. And you want to charge your customer for it. Charge it to the game and let them know why. Be like, hey, let's put this down thick. Let's get a couple extra yards so we could put it down thick. Now, not too thick where you're suffocating the plants. Like this Bradford pear tree, it's called a mulch volcano. Will you ever see where they pile up the mulch all the way to here and then they go pack that mug down? And they pack it. It looks good, but it's horrible for the trees and plants because it retains so much moisture that it creates a perfect environment for a fungal infection to come. And so it can actually rot out and kill the tree if it's piled in mulch volcanoes. I learned this from my friend Daniel Miraval, the certified arborist. You're supposed to have actually the mulch pulled away from the base so you can actually see the root flare of the tree starting to flare out, you want to visually see that, right? So right here I can see the dirt. Now, according to, if you ask a certified arborist or my dog ditched the itch, this isn't even right. We actually should have taken a shovel and dug out, you know, at least a couple feet all the way down to the base of this tree, so the whole flare is exposed and the top of the roots are exposed. Not exposed, but I mean, so you can see them. And then you have mulch that gets thinner so the tree can breathe. The reason I'm saying, we're not doing that here, but the reason I'm saying that is because you don't want to pile stuff around the customer's garden beds, or you could come back a few months later and half the plants are dying and it's your fault because you didn't know, right? The next thing I want to point out with mulch, there's different kinds. This is dyed walnut brown. I think I get it for 33 bucks a yard. If you get it delivered, you're gonna have to pay a delivery fee. So there's brown, there's black mulch, there's something called Traverse City Cherry. Then there's just regular double shredded hardwood mulch. There's single and double shred. I don't really like it because it just looks kind of nasty. I like the nice dyed brown look. But then there's red mulch, and I have an entire video about 3 reasons why I hate red mulch. I'll put a link in the description below. And reason number 1, I hate red mulch, because it's red. It's horrific. So watch that video. One other thing I want to say about mulch is don't be afraid to charge your customer for doing what's right. Oh yeah, you can also remove mulch. If the mulch is getting piled too high in the customer's garden beds where it's suffocating the plants and they just keep putting down more every year, or they want you to put down more, you got to be like, I have a customer right now, I said, hey, we cannot put any more mulch in your garden beds until first you guys pay us to come and excavate and remove all that mulch. It's so piled high, the plants are starting to suffocate. I'm like, I don't want to be responsible for your plants dying. So you might want to come in and scoop out and remove the mulch and charge them more than you would charge to install it. Figure out what your labor rate is and get all that out of there and go back to fresh mulch. Oh yeah, that was the next thing I was gonna say, is when you do mulch, there's bed prepping, okay? You might never want to install mulch until you first sell the customer the upsell and add-on and package of trimming all the shrubs and ornamental trees, pulling all the weeds, pruning the plants, going and edging out all the garden beds with a bed redefiner edger machine. Or we actually installed all this edging years ago, this brick, we did this. Or edging out with a shovel, cleaning it all up. Because let's say a customer has a natural garden bed and they've got all the edging needs to be dug out, a nice deep natural edge with sod. It's all growing into the garden bed all wonky. For you to dig all that out, you could literally, depending on the size of the, you could spend hours and you could spend the entire day just digging up all the edging, filling up wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow after wheelbarrow. Like, we have filled up thousands of pounds of just digging out edging and had to haul it to the dump. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even charge the customer for this. I thought we were just gonna just simply make an edge. No, you gotta dig all that out. So what you might wanna do is give the proper quote to the customer and say, hey, in order to do this the best way, we should thoroughly edge out all these gardens. I can't show you right now. I could show you over there, but that'd be a different video. So we could edge out all these garden beds, but it's gonna be an extra at whatever your labor rate is. Let's say it's $85 per man hour. You say it's going to be an extra $400 plus dumping fees at $60 per yard. It's going to be $520 to thoroughly edge out all these garden beds before we put in fresh mulch. And then if the customer doesn't understand the price, go get a shovel physically and dig out the edging and show them how much is in there. And they know. I've had so many, when you're super transparent with customers and you're honest with them and you just want to serve them at a high level, they're smart. They're like, oh, I know it's a lot of work. I know it's a lot of work. And so that's the good thing. Oh, look at this nice fresh mulch. It is so thick and it's gonna keep the weeds down. Oh yeah, that's the next thing, pulling weeds. Garden bed maintenance. Pulling weeds from the root or pulling them up with a cultivator, charge by the hour, and quote your customers to pull all the weeds before you put the mulch down. All right, so on this property, this is a commercial property. All this garden bed area does not even belong to our customer, right? So I didn't even know. I was way underpricing anyways, but we're ordering extra mulch and we're mulching this whole area. And then the customer came out and he's like, my client came out and he's like, what are you doing? This isn't even our property. And I was like, he's like, it looks good, but it's not our property. I was like, oh. So if you're doing a commercial property, make sure you have very clear definitions of where to mulch and where not to mulch. We actually installed these drains. We maintenance these and clean these out. $150 per yard of mulch installed this year. If that intimidates you, try something more like 125 bucks per yard installed, right? If you can get mulch really cheap in bulk, you can get it for like 22 bucks a yard. I don't know. Charge what's right and do your math. All right, I'm Keith Kalfas. If you like this video, I'll put more mulch videos in the description below. And join my LevelUp landscaping business workshop. It's totally free, where I go deep and I teach you the 3 levers that you must pull right now if you want to make more profit in your landscaping business. KeithKalfas.com/levelup and hit the subscribe button. Peace. In this video, we're going to be talking about mulch, the different colors and styles, and how much you should charge for installing mulch. Let's get started. In my hand, this is a double shredded hardwood mulch. We charge $120 per yard installed. That means price of labor, picking up the mulch, or having it delivered onto the job site and installed in the garden beds is $120 per yard. If you install 10 yards, that's $1,200 bucks. You know, I like to do a discount with the customers. Actually, I haven't done it at all now in a whole year, but if it's anything over 10 yards, you'll knock it down to $100 bucks a yard. If the customer thinks it's too expensive, if you're putting a whole lot of mulch in, I mean, you're gonna make money. Now, I started out installing 60 bucks a yard, then 70. Then I finally got the guts up to charge $80 per yard, and I got on the phone with a buddy of mine who's got another landscape business, was in the game longer than me. He's like, bro, we charge 100 per yard. My mind was blown. I couldn't believe that you could actually get away with charging $100. He goes, all day, he's like, what are you talking about? It was normal to him. And in that moment, I borrowed his certainty. I borrowed his certainty because it was totally normal. He was talking to me like I was crazy, and I had to accept that the thoughts in my head was totally false. So I got my guts up. I'm like, well, I'm gonna do 85 a yard. I lied to him. I was like, I'll do 100 a yard. I brought up to 85 a yard. The customers didn't care. And I noticed it was my own fear. So the next year, I went up to $100 a yard, but I scripted it out in my head. I rehearsed it as being normal. So I tried it out with the customer. We're walking around the property and the customer's like, okay, we need mulch for these garden beds. I said, all right, it looks like you need about 10 yards of mulch. I'll get a better measurement, but about 10 yards, it's $100 bucks a yard. And then this and this, and I just went on like it was totally normal. The customer didn't even budge. I thought it was a fluke. So I started doing this with all my new customers, and before I knew it, I noticed the customers didn't even know. They didn't even care. Here's the thing. I think if you're charging under $100 bucks a yard, you're undercutting and undervaluing yourself because of all the administrative work and everything that goes around. You're not just putting mulch on the ground, right? You're running a luxury service. And it's important that you need to make enough money, not only to pay all the overhead and cost of goods sold and the bills in your business, but to also pay yourself, to pay employees, to pay your taxes, and to have money left over so you can go out for a steak on a Friday night. So you've got red mulch, black mulch, brown mulch, dark wood mulch, shredded pine mulch, undyed hardwood mulch, all these different mulches. I charge the same per yard for all of them because some customers get different mulches and it all just equals out for me. I don't care if this is an extra $2 per yard for the fancy stuff. I just charge now, for the last 2 years, $120 per yard of mulch installed, right? There's single shred, double shred, triple shred. Triple shred is premium. It's very fine, it's soft, and it looks really nice in the garden beds. Beautiful. But the downside of triple shred mulch is it can break down faster into compost and then be an environment for weeds. So the double shred is nice, but it's kind of chunky. See these chunks in here? In this garden bed? That's a double shred. Now single shred is just like way too big. It's chunks like that big and you'd put it in a commercial lot. I think you should have a standardized price chart in your business of all your materials, mulch included. So when you talk to any customer anytime, it's the same price all the way across the board. I get a lot of questions in my YouTube comments about mulch. People say, what do you mean $100 installed? What does that mean? That means that the customer doesn't have to do anything but pay $100. You do everything else. The mulch is installed in the bed. Now, how big is a yard actually? Let's find out. With mulch, I'm literally walking around looking at the garden beds and measuring it with my eyeballs because I've done it so much, and I always come within a few square feet, right? So I know this would be 0.75 yards. Right here is 1/3 of a yard. In front of all those arborvitaes all over there, literally 1/4 of a yard of mulch to put mulch under in front of there at 2 inches. This garden bed over here, this would be about 1/2 a yard of mulch at 2 inches. If I was installing decorative stone, which is way more expensive and a lot harder to get rid of, it's more of an expensive issue, I want to measure that exactly down to the actual square foot. Mulch is a lot forgiving because you can pile stuff on a little thicker or spread it a little thinner to make it match. If you're a wheelbarrow short on a big project, it doesn't even matter because there's probably a couple high spots you can pull from and just make it work, right? If you need a little bit more, you can go get a little bit more if you make a mistake. We've all done that. But when it comes to decorative stone, when you have thousands of pounds and several tons, you want to get it as exact as possible. Decorative stone is a totally different thing, and I'll talk about that in another video, but I do want to say one thing about that here, and that is, with decorative stone, if you're doing your first few landscape jobs, or you're putting in tons of decorative stone, you'd be better off ordering it in segments. Order the first half, right? Then order another 25%, and then order another 25%. However big the job is, you're going to actually go retrieve the last amount of stone to finish, because what really sucks is if you end up with 5 tons of too much stone, and if you don't have a machine or whatever, you got to get all that stuff out of there, and now you're paying labor to get it off the property and paying to dump it. Nightmare. One of the other most important questions I get about mulch is, what about the garden bed prep? What about weeding and pulling the weeds and edging out the garden beds and cleaning out the garden beds, or cleaning out underneath all the shrubs before you put the mulch in? Is that included? You should never ever include that in installing mulch, because that's a different service. But you should never ever forget about it when you're giving the customer a quote for mulch. This is how you get into this situation. Very common. You quote the customer to put 10 yards of mulch in, and then you get ready to put the mulch in, you go, oh shoot, the garden beds aren't edged. There's a bunch of stuff in the garden beds. Then you're upset because now you feel like you can't go to the customer and knock on their door and say, I'm sorry, your garden beds need to be cleaned out here. A lot of times when you're new in the business, you'll just get nervous and you'll eat the cost and you'll just clean them out anyways, or you'll just include the edging for free because you made the mistake and you don't know what to do now, right? And the customer will they might just think it's included. Now if you go do it and you edge out the garden beds, next year they're gonna expect you to do that again because you did it for free and you weren't even aware because you made a mistake and you were doing something for free because you were afraid to, because you put the cart before the horse. Now you've created an expectation and now you've just built that into your system and then weren't even aware of it, and it sucks. I've been there. If you're edging out all the garden beds and you think it's gonna take you 2 hours, well, maybe it's gonna cost an extra $240 to edge out the garden beds. If a lot of stuff needs to be cleaned out, say, hey, we're gonna have to clean this stuff out, and there's gonna be a debris removal fee. It might take an extra half an hour, plus the cost it's gonna cost you to dump all the stuff, plus all the drive time to go dump it and clean it up. You don't know how many jobs I've been on where there was literally no edge, and now we're digging out big pieces of sod and we're filling up 6, 7, 8 wheelbarrows it becomes a whole nother half a day just edging out the garden beds. So next time you give a customer a quote for mulch, you got to go stop and say, okay, you want mulch? Let's talk about your garden bed edges. Is there edging? Is it messed up? Do you need to repair it? We can do that. Or I don't mess with repairs. Figure that stuff out ahead of time, communicate it very clearly to your customer, and make sure you're on the same exact page and that it's in writing in the contract, because you can't be edging out garden beds for free. Charge them. Say, do you want your garden beds edged out? We do a nice deep 3 or 4 inch edge. I do a 4 inch edge straight down, and then it tapers back, and the mulch sits inside of the edge like a beveled lip. It's nice and clean. It's a pretty look. It keeps a nice delineated separation from the grass and the mulch, right? But I also charge for that. So not only are we putting in mulch in for $1,200, we're also doing $300 in edging, $1,500 to edge out all garden beds, remove debris, install 10 yards of hardwood mulch. Dude, this should be my mulch course, bro. How to measure mulch. How do you measure mulch in your landscaping business? Come with me. On this property right now, we're installing 3 yards of double shredded black hardwood mulch. How much do you charge? But how do you measure it? Come this way. So I've done everything from 1 yard up to 190 yards of mulch, which would be 5 full semi-truck loads with 10 guys to install mulch. But there's been times after 5 years of doing this where I've said, how am I still doing this wrong? We didn't order enough mulch, or we ordered too much mulch, and I could never get it spot on, because sometimes here's why. Okay, so a yard of mulch covers between 100 and 140 square feet at 2 inches. Where's the difference of 40 square feet? Well, it depends on the blend of the mulch, right? This right here is a triple shred premium. So it covers more volume because it spreads out more. A double shredded mulch, especially dyed mulches that are dyed with an organic black or brown, they're thicker. The bark chips are thicker, and then they don't cover as much. So, in my opinion, in my experience, and I want to know in the comments below, I'm asking you too, where's the difference? I've ordered 3 yards for a property and ended up getting 4 or 5. And I'd get upset. I'd be like, what's going on here? We're piling up this high in the garden beds. We can't do that, because if you pile mulch around plants, you're gonna suffocate them and kill them. You want just enough. Oh, it depends on who you order it from, what yard, who's delivering it that day, like who's loading it, and what mood they're in. Shouldn't it be a consistent volume all the time, no matter what, across the board? Well, apparently it's not, because I've ordered 3 yards of mulch, I've got 4, I've ordered 20. That ain't no 20 yards of mulch. Get like 18. And it depends on what city you're in or what state you're in. Some mulch suppliers here in Michigan, landscape suppliers, they give you exactly 1 cubic yard. That's what you pay for. Another guy I go to, they just pile it on. I get 1.25 cubic yards for every yard I get. So you might get spoiled and start actually saying, okay, we only actually need 9, because I know we're gonna get 10, and then all of a sudden something changes, right? So it's like this constant shift. Drives me nuts. So here, what's the 2 inches all about? 100 square feet at 2 inches. How do you measure that? Well, you can get a measuring wheel and you can actually go across and do all the math on every single property, and I think you should if you're just getting started. But it gets to the point where your brain just figures it out. What are the dimensions of these garden beds minus the plant materials and spacing? Come over here. Look how much space this plant takes up. If you've got a thin line like this that goes all the way along, that doesn't literally take as much mulch as you think it would. But when you have a huge wide open garden bed, right, and it's on a radius, a curve, there's berms, like pine trees, right? It'll eat up twice the amount of mulch than you were anticipating, because when there's a berm like this, the mulch will fill up and it has to pack to build a base before it gets up to the top. So it's always a little bit thicker at the bottom, just a little bit, just like decorative stone. And then, not too much, just a little. But then if you take the radius of that bermed out garden bed, if you were to flatten that out, look at the difference. It's actually a lot more. See, it looks small, but when you flatten it out, there's just more square footage. That's all there is. So think about, what is the radius of the garden? I mean, does the garden bed have a curve on it, right? Is it a berm? Another thing is, I'm trying to keep this really simple here. There's something really costly and frustrating, like all this mulch right here we're putting down at 2 inches. This is 2 full yards right here that we put down at 2 inches, because we got about 18 by 35. I just call it 2 yards, right? I'm not going to sit here and measure. When you have to go back to the landscape supplier and you have to eat it, like, that's really unprofessional, and knock on your customer's door and be like, oh, we need more money, more mulch, we underquote it. Dude, that's your fault. You should have to eat that and learn your lesson. Because what if you get a job that requires 100 yards of mulch? Are you going to tell the customer we messed up by $3,000 or something like that? So I can't tell you how many times I've had to go back to the landscape supplier in the middle of a job and go get more mulch on my dime and eat it over and over and over and over. So what I did, I got paranoid. I started ordering more mulch, and now we're taking mulch off of the job sites because there's too much dang mulch. So it's the constant battle. It's the constant battle with my dollar store sunglasses and mulch. I chalk it up to 1 out of every 20 jobs there's a mistake. If you have any ideas in the comments below of how you can perfectly quote mulch every single time, because I tell you, I've probably done over 2,000 mulch jobs, and still I know for a fact this year I'm either going to get too much or I'm going to get too little. So mulch is $120 per yard over here. That's installed, so I include the delivery fee in that. It was 65, then 75, 85, 95, 100, 110. Now this year it's 120. Prepping garden beds. We don't prep the bed edges. That's a man hour. It's $65 per man hour. So here it was $45 to take the garden bed edger and edge out all the customers' garden beds to prep them. So we put a nice edge on it. If they want the weeds pulled, that's garden maintenance, and that's extra. That's man hour, right? So it might be $174 or something to pull the weeds on the garden beds. Now, somebody was saying in the comments, does that include weed barrier fabric? No! Weed barrier fabric's expensive and very time consuming. So we're at $2 per square foot for weed barrier fabric installed. High quality. From the landscape supplier. It's not the felt, it's the one step down from that. And then the box of the metal pins, that's like 80 bucks. So we charge double the price on the pins and $2 per yard so far. And that seems to work out, because you have to go and prep all the beds and then suture and put all the weed barrier fabric and cut it all together around all the plants and make it all nice, neat and clean, and cut where the sprinkler heads are. It's extremely time consuming. So you can end up putting your foot in your mouth if you do, back this way, weed barrier fabric. And then another thing I want to say is, if you're doing mulch over weed barrier fabric, you're probably going to need a good 3 inches of mulch, because if you try to get away thin, it ain't going to work. The slightest little tiny tussle you're going to see. Another thing is, there's charcoal color weed barrier fabric. There's the light gray, there's the dark gray. We're now getting the dark charcoal colored kind. That's high quality. So just in case the mulch gets moved around that 3 inches, that you don't see this loud screaming light gray weed barrier fabric underneath, right? And I hate doing weed barrier fabric. I absolutely hate it. So, but when we do weed barrier fabric, I mean, it's actually more expensive than the mulch itself. So here we are. We went around with the garden bed edger machine. I got it from Echo, the PAS 225, whatever. Edged all this out, and then we're just gonna go through. We're putting the nice triple shredded black mulch. Colored mulch is a little bit more expensive. Not from the supplier I get it from though.
But if you have to charge more, if you have to pay more for dyed mulch, then you have to charge more for it. Sweet. So we're gonna finish up here. And the only reason we got the mulch, we picked it up with my dump trailer. It's usually I'd rather have it delivered because we only got 3 yards and it's literally right next door to the dump where we dump, so it was actually more cost efficient. Otherwise, if there's any landscape job we do when they're in, you know, between $5,000 and $10,000 jobs, I always get the materials delivered so I can stay on the job site or be going out and getting the important materials, right? So that's about it. I think it's like if you get mulch delivered, it's almost like having like an extra employee deliver it for you, because it's very time consuming going to pick up materials. Oh yeah, and the last thing I want to say about mulch is the icing on the cake. If you're doing the whole property maintenance job, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Brick pavers, ripping out, replacing bushes, building garden beds, putting in edging. The final thing you do once everything is done and clean up and all blown down, then you do the mulch. And then you clean up whatever's left of the mulch, because if you go to put mulch in before anything else is done, then you're blowing and cleaning up, you're gonna blow crap all over your beautiful, nice mulch. So, mulch is the last thing. Will we do the mulch like this? I'm gonna go around before we leave here, because we're spreading it out, and we run along and make a nice, it only takes about 10 minutes, but we'll go along and we'll make it sit inside of the lip like this, so it's beveled, so it has a nice clean sense of delineation and separation, so it's not just piled up against the edge, so you can actually see that there's a garden bed, and you can just go along with your hand like that. I'll put a link in the description below to my mulch madness video. It's a fun video. I did it a couple years ago. Alright, cool. That's my take on mulch, and let me know in the comments below, what do you charge for mulch? Do you prep the beds? Do you include bed prep? What do you charge for it? What do you do? I love this community and I love being part of it, and there's a lot of stuff that I learned from you guys in the comments, so cool. Also, these double wheelbarrows here, it's really weird to control and operate, but I think I'm going to get these from now on because you could just fit more and you don't have to work as hard. And then also pitchforks, I forgot to mention. I love using a pitchfork. Only use a mulch scoop shovel for the very bottom, but you can stick a pitchfork in the mulch and pull it up faster. And I'm thinking about getting this one pitchfork. It's this wide, bro, but it's like $90 for this pitchfork. It's heavy, but you can get that much more mulch that much faster. A really, really big mulch job with a lot of property, we'd probably rent like a cement, like a power buggy, then fill that thing up and then just buggy it around and dump piles while guys are spreading. Because the bigger the property and the more you have to actually physically travel, that's what's eating up all your time. These big corner lots, properties that are bigger, travel time every time you're walking and stepping. So, all right, cool. Later. I forgot my work coat in my garage, and I'm sitting here wearing a Lacoste jacket to work. What's up, guys? This is Keith Kalfas with the Landscaping Employee Trap, KeithKalfas.com. In this video, we're gonna learn how much to charge for a spring cleanup in your landscaping business. Come with me. The spring is popping, it's crackling, and what do you do during a spring cleanup? So, here's what we do. We blow out all the garden beds thoroughly, pull any weeds if there's anything. We trim down the shrubs, that's extra, and trim up the whole property and just make it look pristine again. So, blow out the leaves. So, here we blow and rake out all the garden beds. Like here, we we gotta take a rake up underneath here to get all the ones that are stuck and just blow it all out. And then sometimes a little bit of the mulch will blow out of the beds, but that's okay too. Let's go in the backyard. All right, we're in the backyard of this property now. This is a client of mine. And yes, we have explicit permission to film on the property. Don't film on properties without permission. And I forgot my work jacket at the house somewhere in my nice Lacoste landscape. So check this out. We're trimming down the shrubs, cleaning everything up, working our way to the backyard. This spring cleanup is $220 for this property. That includes just a quick spring trim of all the shrubs, clean up the property, blow out all the garden beds, clean everything up. Now here's the cool part. The neighbor came out. What happens when the neighbor comes out? We call it a walk-up. They say, "Dad be looking crispy. I want mine done too." So next door over there, if you can see, we're doing the neighbor. One thing always offers the package price. So we do landscaping and window cleaning. So whenever at a customer's house, offer to give them a price for gutter cleaning, for trimming their trees, cleaning their windows. Give them an all-inclusive package price so they at least know what services you have. Say, hey, you want the whole enchilada? The whole enchilada, right? Now, back here, any of the garden beds, if there's any grass growing out of the beds, pull it from the root, get it all out, nice and clean, and that's it. So that's what we charge. Our base price for a spring cleanup job is $250. That's just for anything, for us to show up on any property. And the only reason we're doing this one for $220, which I'm already lying to you, is because it's just such a small property and such a quick job. No, actually it was $250 and the customer said, well, looking into last year's estimate, you charged me $220. I said, well, I guess we'll do it for $220. Gotta get that work. So the common questions are, do you take the leaves away for that price too? Yes. Now, I normally charge $60 per yard of debris removal. Per yard, right? Here's the problem. When I told the neighbor it was gonna be $250 to do theirs, they go, $250. Because your average like lawn care company would probably do like the whole spring cleanup with the leaves for like, I don't know, 120, 140, maybe 175. So I already know I'm coming a little bit high. That's why we don't get a lot of spring cleanups. But here's why. You wanna know why? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because how are you supposed to grow a legitimate company that's got taxes, insurance, right? Do you pay your taxes? I know some landscapers ain't paying their taxes. I got taxes. You see this? I gotta pay to dump that stuff. See this trailer? This trailer was almost $7 grand. See this sign? This sign cost me about 75 cents. But the wifey wants a new house and she wants to start popping out some babies, right? And health insurance about $1 grand a month. So that's how much you charge for a spring cleanup. So let's get to work. All right, I gotta fire up my audiobook real quick on audible.com. You can get a 30-day free trial or 2 free audiobooks, whatever. Click the link in the description below for audible.com. I put on my safety glasses. If you wanna know what audiobooks I'm listening to while working, I just finished Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. And then I'm on Shoe Dog Night right now, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. But that's not what I'm listening to right now. Right now I'm actually listening to some top secret stuff about equities. Whoa! You can't hear that stuff down. It's top secret! Alright, let's get to work. Right now would be a good time to hit the subscribe button. Smash the thumbs up. I told you to hit the subscribe button, Jesus! trimming the shrubbies. If your blades are dull, they'll start tearing. You see these little veins sticking out, it's called the vascular bundles. It's not a good idea. This one be crispy. You ever just like in the corner of a customer's property trimming some shrubs, dog, and you just freeze? You're like, it's like kind of cozy over here, isn't it? Like I could just chill here. Oh, never mind, bro. I'd say, what if the customer comes out back and you're like comes out, we do garden maintenance, right? If you're like under a shrub pulling weeds, sometimes I just freeze and I get this deep sense of peace. I'll be like, I want to tell you a secret. I was a foreman for one of the biggest landscape companies in my state. Prestige company. They fired me for making YouTube videos. I swear to God, bro, they threatened to sue me. I felt bad. Like, so you can't find it because it's not online. My first YouTube show, it was called The Gardening Goof. And I act like a complete jackass. Don't ever do this if you have a job and you work for someone. I was literally, you can imagine, I was doing it with the company shirt on company time, on client property. I wasn't aware of what I was doing. I just thought I was having fun making videos, and I wasn't aware that it was really unprofessional. And they like straight up threatened to sue me. But I've since then started my own business, and now I'm the gardening goof in my business. But I've called those people up that I used to work for, and I apologized to them. And I told them I was sorry, and I really am sorry. That was stupid. But where one door closes, another opens. I'll give you a tip for trimming shrubs. The blade never, ever, ever leaves the shrub. If you're going like this, you got a problem. You got a little bit more of a problem. So the blade never leaves the shrub. By the way, these are the Red Max CHT 220Ls. I actually love these. You know why? Because they're lightweight, they're ergonomic, they work good, and they're quiet compared to some other brands. Alright, just finished up with the first property. Now, going to start the next one. And I like that it's right next door. That's what a walk-up is so good for, because it's right now money. No drive time, no rescheduling, nothing. And then also, I'm running my business off a House Call Pro. So click the link in the description below to get your first month for only 19 bucks. It's the scheduling software that we use. Check it out, it's dope. Start a landscaping business, in the link in the description below you can get my free 3 video series on how to start a landscaping business. It's totally free. Click the link in the below, it'll say 3 free video series. Check it out, you're gonna love it. It's awesome. This here is the pampas grass. You cut that pampas grass down, but not all the way. You got to leave a supporting base for the new grass to grow, so it don't fall over like hey, shake. Now let's. Check me out on Instagram at Keith Kalfas. Check me out on Snapchat at Keith Kalfas. Check me out on YouTube at Keith Kalfas. Go to KeithKalfas.com. Hashtag Keith Kalfas. Check out the Untrapped podcast. Hashtag Untrapped.
It's good. I'm liking this one.